Pages of the papers, starting off with Vanguard this morning, and Vanguard is leading with why insecurity is not going away yet, and that's coming from the service chief. The writer says warders assisting in prison the Boko Haram insurgents to operate, and that's coming from CDS. Says armed forces underfunded adds Finnish government protecting Simon Ekpa, alleges Ekpa sabotaging security agencies' efforts in southeast. Cost of aviation fuel, introduction of surcharges affecting NAF operation. That's coming from Air Chief. I met battered police officer IGP. Laments police personnel grossly inadequate. Insecurity will soon be over, and that's coming from Defense Minister. Security, welfare of people, primary purpose of government, and that's coming from Speaker Abbas. Declare national emergency on kidnapping, and that's coming from Huriwa, telling the president. And of course, a photo story showing crowd welcomes the Kano governor. Rivers crisis, two factional assembly lawmakers hold separate sittings. You can see that on page 7. As governor, FCTA officials gave me fake C of O, and that's coming from Wike. You can read that on page 25. Senate in rowdy session over leadership positions. You can see that on page 9. A federal government revoke 1,633 solid mineral titles. Stories above. Brutally frank, Nigeria doomed without restructuring. Federalism. Clark, Adebanjo, Asiodu, Anya, Akiyemi, Utomi, others. On page 10, overturning Kano Zamfara Plateau voters' decision in court unacceptable, and that's coming from Obasanjo. Nigeria, Germany signed a $500 million renewable energy gas deal. And lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, we have Nigeria's rig count drops at 13% as oil output rises to 1.4 BPD. We'll take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with government asks Supreme Court to extend old Naira notes lifespan. The writer says nation risk return to currency squeeze crisis. Apex Court fixes November 30 for hearing. Security are challenges by service chiefs. IG. The writer says the police ill motivated, neglected. Finland frustrating plans to repatriate IPOP chief. Stories above 5,000 kilometers of pipelines vandalized. Gary laments. 1,633 mining operators forfeit licenses. Lake goes tough. Factionalized rivers lawmakers in separate sittings. Senate OK's minority leadership in rowdy session. Take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with amid heavy dockets, electoral cases overwhelm judges, justice system. You can read that on page 6. Of course, you can see an infographic showing more on that report. Rivers Assembly crisis persists as factions hold separate sittings. You can read that on page 28. Confusion as appeal courts certified judgment uphold Governor Abba Yusuf's election. APC warned of democratic cancer as NMPP backed article on merger. Adebanjo Clark Anya other stacks to number on implementation of 2014 Confab report. Judge warns public against dropping charms in Lagos courtroom. You can read that on page 9. Lagos State government says a procurement of 440 million naira SUVs orders in tandem with economic realities. You can read that on page 7. And that's how we can take on the Guardian. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with state spends 1.7 trillion naira on trips, meals, orders, borrows 988 billion naira. The writer says the states borrowed 988.48 billion naira from banks, orders in 9 months. Governors get over 87 billion naira for security votes. Ondo denies the 7.3 billion naira diversion. Ghetto in Paradise, we can see a photo story showing Abuja pupils learn in sheds, endures a dumped order. On page 5, Vandal to die by hanging, accomplice bags 16 years, $35 billion needed to execute concrete road projects. That's coming from Umai. Sonlu denies fraud, assembly orders probe, stories above. Federal government revokes 1,633 mining licenses, vows to sanitize sector. You can read that on page 31. Last in the front page of the Punch newspaper, insecurity. Military blames the Forex, demands a special court for terrorists. And that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining in, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chipudi, and joining me to talk about some of the stories. We'll be starting off with our correspondent, Gift Chapio Dekina. She's going to be telling us more on the insecurity story of the service chief saying that why insecurity is not going away yet. Gift, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning. Good
Oh,
morning, Nigeria.
all right. Can you tell us more on the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, saying that Boko Haram members held in prisons across the country still carry out their criminal operations through the help of some prison warders?
Yes, yeah, that was yesterday on the floor of the House during plenary when the House had their session sectorial debate with the service chiefs. And the Chief of Defense Staff mentioned that part of the challenge why insecurity is being a major problem and it looks as if it's not being tackled is because sometimes mostly they got to discover that Boko Haram members who are in captivity still carry out their operations outside the prison. And when they interrogated to find out how this is being done, they were told some prison warders, not all of them do, some help them in carrying out these criminal activities. In fact, they even help them to transfer funds from one location to the other. This, he said, is a major challenge, and the correctional center across the country should be looked into when it comes to this area. And he also mentioned that it's really, really a major challenge for them.
All right. He spoke about armed forces being underfunded. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, he mentioned it. He mentioned fund as a major challenge in fighting insecurity. He said sometimes because of the dollar exchange rate, it has also affected because even when it comes to purchase of equipment, by the time the money is being released and they go to purchase this equipment, the money is no more up to what it should be because of the dollar exchange rate. So he also called on the federal government to look into it and call for the assistance of the National Assembly to increase their budgetary allocation in order to help the armed forces in this regard.
Hmm. Also, he spoke on the need for the armed forces to leverage the use of artificial intelligence. Tell us more.
Yeah, on the issue of on that in that regard, he mentioned it that if the federal government can look into that area, it is something that can assist them, especially now that everything is not like it used to be. He also called that the National Assembly should help in this regard, and that the federal government should help the armed forces in that area.
All right. Thank you so much, Give Chappie, for that report.
Thank you.
Moving on, our correspondent, Umizaja, is going to be telling us more about the Minister of the FCT speaking about the FCTA officials issued him a fake C of O. Umiza, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Can you go ahead and tell us more on that report?
The minister was speaking at a meeting with real estate developers, and he was talking about some sharp practices that had gone on in the past, and how he is ever ready to fight such practices. So he gave an instance, a personal example of how, as governor of Rivers State, they got a land, the state government got a land and allocation in the FCT here. And then when they wanted to do something on the land, having paid for the certificate of occupancy, about 57 million, they discovered that there were 3 certificates of occupancy on that land, meaning that some things had gone wrong. So the 3 people were holding certificates, certificates of occupancy on a plot of land. So that was what he said. He actually sent the liaison officer, everyone said liaison officer in Abuja here, to come to the FCT administration and meet with the officials. They got to the land and discovered that there were clear allocations and they had paid the money. And those who did this, according to him, were officials of the administration. But yet, they could not be traced, meaning that those officials were working with some proxies, people working with syndicates outside of the administration. Because we can recall also that in 2020, under the immediate past minister, a syndicate was uncovered and they confessed to be working with some officials of the administration. And then the minister said that they were going to do something about them, though nothing much was heard before that minister left. Aside that, just last month, the Corporate Affairs Commission, the Registrar General of that agency, I think Hussein Magaji, said they had uncovered 189 fake companies, 189 fake companies within the FCT, which were being used to get land allocations. And the land allocations they were using those companies to get were plots that had already been allocated to people. So those companies will still apply, working with some officials of the administration. Lands that had already been allocated to some members of the public will now be reallocated to these 189 fake companies. And they also have their own CFO. So these were the sharp practices that the FCT Minister Wike was talking about, and that since as a new sheriff in town, that he'll be able to tackle that challenge headlong.
All right. Aside from the FCT, are there ways that they are also looking at, across the country as well? Because this is not just only peculiar to the FCT. There are ways that it can be across board too.
River State Governor, when this happened to him in the FCT, the land in question was allocated to the River State government when Wike was the governor of River State. The land, virtually all the state governments, they have lands in the FCT here. They have liaison offices, they have government lodges and all that. So there was land allocation made to some states, and the one given to River State government when Wike was the governor, there were issues because of the fake CFOs that were issued on that land. As for happenings in other states, those are subnational entities and they are autonomous in a way when it comes to land, because lands are vested in the hands of the governors of those states according to the Land Use Act. So the governors of those states, I believe, will be working with their own, they will have their own geographic information system or the records of land and all that. Of course, they should be able to come up with various policies to stem the tide of fake land allocation or land racketeering in their states.
All right, thank you so much, Umeza Ajayi, for that detailed report.
You're welcome.
We'll move over to our next correspondent, James Ogunaike. He's going to be telling us more on Obasanjo saying that he doesn't agree. He finds it unacceptable about overturning Kano's Zamfara Plateau voters' decision in court. James, can you go ahead with that report?
At the high-level consultation, we're thinking on Western liberal democracy in Africa, held at Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library between Monday and Tuesday. So former President Obasanjo expressed his dismay over the court judgment going on the election petition in Nigeria. He said, how can millions of people vote for a candidate and 3 to 5 man panel will overturn decisions of millions of Nigerians on a particular candidate? That shouldn't happen. That is part of the Western liberal democracy handed to Africa by the Western world. So in that regard, the former president was agitating for what he called Afro-democracy. That the Western democracy doesn't take into consideration our thinking, African thinking, African lifestyle, and the many things about Africa. That the Western democracy was tailored towards the Western world. That we are not yet right for such democracy.
All right. For the Afro democracy, what are the things he thinks that the Afro democracy will do for Nigerians?
Baba is former President Obasanjo is a total African man. He believes in anything Africa. So what he was trying to say was that we should do our things in our own way, in African way. That the Africans should stop imitating the Western world. That our culture are not the same, our tradition are not the same. Nothing that we can compare that can connect us with the Western world. That's what he's trying to say.
All right. In your own view, what can you say as regards, when the citizens see situations like this, where about 3 to 5 judges, obtain results from an election? What can you say as regards that?
You know, at least recently, after the Supreme Court judgment on the presidential election, we were made to understand that law is different from opinion and emotions. So I believe that for the judges to be able to, before they make a pronouncement, they must have weighed the pros and cons of their decision vis-a-vis the petition or grievance before them. And in relation to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electoral Act 2022. So I believe that though they are humans, but I believe that they should be able to do the needful with their pronouncement, putting into consideration the national unity and the national interest.
All right. Thank you so much, James Ogunake, for that report.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on, we'll take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mr. and Mrs. is, Mr. obviously is speaking this morning. He says, what is this? I gave you 250,000 naira yesterday. Apart from a weightless thank you, a hug and a kiss, no other sign of appreciation came. You couldn't even greet me properly this morning. And Mrs. reply says, sorry, dear, let me come and greet you in capital letters. Obviously, when we see people type in caps, we think that they are like shouting. So probably if Mrs. goes to greet Mr. in capital letters, it will be much appreciated. All right, that's why we'll draw the curtains on the show this morning. Remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. Find out today's stories. Go to our website, www.vanguardindia.com, to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.